So anyway, spinnerbait conditions. This is number one, and anybody that fishes out there needs to know this. If that wind starts blowing, you need to be thinking about a spinnerbait. That's the number one. If you go, especially if it's a changing conditions, you go from slick, calm glass, you start getting some rifflage on the water, a little wind action, boom. You got to start thinking about a spinnerbait. And I have some theories why this is effective. I'm really not that. I'm not sure. I'm not positive on it. But when the wind blows, of course, it knocks down the light penetration through the water. And when you have those lower light conditions, spinnerbait just really shines. It does in clouds, in rainy situations, and it's a really effective tool in current situations. I'm a big-time river fisherman, and a current situation is definitely a spinnerbait situation. In your reservoirs, your lakes, anything where you have the current running, that's a great time. Even if it's bluebird skies, if you've got good current, you can get them with a blade. But wind is number one, and I will caution you on this, and this is important down here in Florida lakes. Wind can be your enemy down here big time. One of the things I like to do on Florida lakes is I try to pattern fish on various sides of the lake because of the wind. I do this on any big body of water. In other words, Okeechobee is a great one to talk about just because it's a big circle. If I can find fish on the north, south, east, and west sides of that lake, I'm good to go. This whole spinnerbait, its whole design concept is for speed, and speed triggers strikes. It triggers strikes from big fish, right? And we want a translucent skirt when we're talking about speed because we don't want a fish to get a good look at it. That's why we're burning it. If he gets too good a look at it in that crystal clear water, okay, he may be able to identify it as not being foraged, you know, and maybe turn away. So we want a translucent skirt, something he's looking at. He hears it, he sees it, but he's not really sure, and you can get him to commit with those translucent skirts. The opaque skirts, use that in stained water. Blue herring is just one of my, I don't know, it has just a blue strand and a chartreuse strand in it. Man, it catches them all over the country.
Hey Pete, the skirt, do you trim that skirt with your trailer hook and you burn it?
That's a good question. Do I trim the skirt? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. You know, really, I throw it right out of the pack untrimmed. Warrigal has dangling pieces of skirt that dangle down. A lot of times if they're short striking it, sometimes I'll try to cut the skirt, try to get them to come more up to the front of the hook. But generally speaking, I throw it out of the box and I just put a trailer hook on. And there are times in some of my spinnerbaits, I do use trailers. I do use grubs, and I do use double tail trailers sometimes.
Do you prefer a gold blade or a silver blade?
Good question. Gold blades or silver blades? I prefer both. And I use, and we're going to get into blade configurations and how to adjust to it and which to use. I can tell you this, down here in Florida, it's tough to beat a golden shiner spinnerbait a lot of times. Double gold willow leaf blades with a skirt that has some gold flash in it. They feed a lot on golden shiners down in places like Okeechobee. It can be a dynamite tool. Generally speaking, 9 times out of 10, anywhere in the country, I've got a silver big blade and a gold front blade. And if I do see I try to match the hatch sometimes. If there's a lot of shad around, there's a lot of herring around, I'll go with the double silver blades. Just a lot of silver flash on the bait fish. I put a lot of silver flash on my spinnerbaits. Line size and type, great question. Well, I made the mistake at a Megabucks tournament, and I fished. It was my first Megabucks tournament back when they used to have those, and I remember this. We were down in Texas, and I came from up north, and I was a light line fisherman. To start out in this business, and I'd never go heavy. And even on my spinnerbaits, I'd throw 14-pound test, and that was heavy for me. And I'm in the tournament, and I'm reeling a spinnerbait past these 2 cedar trees, and I'm kind of coming up on them like this, and they're in a row. And I thought, well, that looks like a good target. So I threw, and I'm kind of slow rolling it past these 2 cedar trees. I pull through the branches of the first cedar tree, and boom, there she is. And I set up, and she just loaded up a really quality fish, one that you fish all week to get one like this. And she starts swimming away from the cedar trees, and I've got her. I'm like, so I pull my boat around, and I'm starting to fight the fish, and about the time I get comfortable, she turns around and shoots right back into those 2 cedar trees. And I've only got 14-pound test, you know. she gets in the cedar trees and she's stuck. And I go in there, and turns out these cedar trees, there's an old piece of barbed wire fence, right? She's wrapped around the barbed wire, and the 14-pound test did the best job it could. I promise you, it held on for a pretty long time. And we seesawed. She popped it. Now, and I'm frustrated. I knew it was a big fish, but I really had no idea. And I retied the spinnerbait. I'm a little frustrated that I let that happen. And behind the boat, out comes a fish in the 10-pound class, jumping, trying to get that spinnerbait out of her mouth. So my point is, with spinnerbait fishing, very rarely do I use less than 20-pound test. And I usually use either copolymer or fluorocarbon, depending on how I'm fishing it. But I always go heavy. It's a reaction bait. So I'm not too worried about visibility of the line.
It's Mike Iaconelli. This is Bass U TV.
Here's what's awesome about Bass U TV.
You get the top instructors.
You will learn things at Bass U that you will learn nowhere else.
We take the mystery and the myths out of bass fishing.
Real tools that help you catch more fish consistently.
At Bass U TV, shoes are optional.
And I like turtles.
And that's why you want to check out Bass U TV.
Join the Bass U family.
Welcome to Bass U TV.